Even though new data today show that inflation is slowing, many prices remain high, and the most vulnerable Americans are bearing the brunt. William Brangham has more on who is being hit hardest.
Judy, new data shows inflation has had an outsized negative impact on Native American, Black, and Latino families in particular. A poll out this week from NPR, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and Harvard found 69% of Native Americans say inflation has caused serious financial problems, as do 58% of Black Americans and 56% of Latinos. Just 44% of white and 36% of Asian households report similar hardships. Alonzo Plough is the Chief Science Officer of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and he was involved in this research. The foundation is one of the NewsHour's funders. Mr. Plough, very good to have you on the NewsHour. I mean, we have been tracking how a lot of Americans across the spectrum have been hurt by inflation, but these communities seem to be really suffering disproportionately. Why is that?
Well, while inflation influences and affects all of us, these are communities, the Black, Indigenous, Latino populations, who are economically marginal in the best of time. So one has to think about inflation as just amplifying a situation of almost survival economics in the best of time for these groups. So the impact goes from being difficult in terms of your economic status to barely being able to make it. Trade-offs like not paying rent, not being able to get health care, and actually food insecurity. So the effects are immediate and much more severe than most of us are facing with inflation.
It seems similar to the way in which COVID, again, revealed all of these inequities that we knew existed in our society, but again, it highlighted them in such stark relief. Inflation seems to be doing exactly the same thing.
The analogy with COVID is exactly right. COVID pointed out long-standing disparities. And again, it's very important to point out that these are not based on people's race, but the effect of racism that creates a variety of marginalizing factors, housing that's insecure, neighborhoods that are not safe, lack of health insurance. Generations of that is going to put our populations at greater risk for any kind of problem, be it COVID or inflation.
One particular fact jumped out. I mean, a whole bunch of them did, but this one, a third of Black and Latino families were saying that they had a hard time affording food. Almost 40% of Indigenous families said the same thing. How should we interpret that? I mean, that is very, very difficult to cut back on feeding your family.
We should interpret that these are people who are just at the borderline of survival on a day-to-day basis. So food insecurity is a way of life. Trade-offs are being made all the time between healthcare, paying rent, packing a lunch for your kid at school. And again, a situation like inflation, again, just tips you into more of a precarious situation. That's a chronic problem, and it's unfortunate when that is only elevated in the context of COVID disparities or inflation disparities.
Another similar fact, just to the point that you're saying, that majorities in each of these communities were saying they didn't have enough savings to bridge 1 month of their normal expenses. And if you think about that, of a family not being able to have enough in the bank to bridge a month of their expenses, I mean, that is truly living on the edge.
Yes, families, again, these are minimum wage earning families are living on the edge. And all data show that there are scarce, if any, savings. And then another long-term impact of marginalization is lack of transgenerational wealth. Families, our polling showed that majority populations had family members had helped them out, other generations. But that's not the case when there has been income inequality, again, for generations in our Black, Brown, and Indigenous populations.
I mean, we are seeing some signs that inflation is starting to wane slightly. For these families, does that give you a sense that, okay, this might turn around for them, or do you worry that the setbacks that they've suffered during this inflationary period might just mean they're going to continue falling behind?
I wish I could be more optimistic, but I'm not. These are families who have been economically marginalized throughout their life course, those kind of conditions in place that create daily trade-offs between whether you can afford food, whether you can afford gas in the car, those will continue. And it's just unfortunate that we need a survey like this to point out a problem that should be discussed every day. Large percentages of our population are really living at the margin and so economically vulnerable.
I mean, this research seems to point out that as far as longer-term solutions to this, I mean, we're talking about very systemic issues in our society. What people get paid, whether they have access to health care, what the social safety net looks like. I mean, those are seemingly very difficult challenges for our leaders to address in the best of times.
Well, our leaders have opportunities to address that. And many of the approaches to deal with these problems of poverty and marginality, I mean, this isn't rocket science. Other countries do it as a standard part of their social welfare programs. Many elements in current legislation that haven't been implemented around daycare, childcare. There are many different approaches that have been not found their way sufficiently into current legislation that are remedies for this. So the tragedy is not applying things that we know will work in order to eliminate this kind of disparity.
All right, Alonzo Plough of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.